Hello again and welcome back. Day 4, Introduction to the Swift Programming Language. So far we've gone through variables, types and functions, optionals and conditionals, collection types and control flow. Today we're going to go over structs, classes, and enums. I know that doesn't have classes in there, but we're going to go over structs, classes, and enums today. So here's a link to the lesson plan, and you can follow the link here to get the slides. Maybe I'll put a link in, or the link in the description for the video too. So here we are. We've got classes, structs, and enums, and today we'll go over structs, classes, and enums. By the end of class, you should understand the difference between a class and a struct, be able to create data models with both classes and structs, and know when to use an enum and how to create enums, and also give them associated values. So far we've talked about the internal or standard normal data types like int, string, and array, and double, and a couple others, right? And bool, right? Character, right? Okay. But sometimes you need a custom data type to represent something that's more complex than just a plain old string, right? So imagine we wanted to make a data type that represented a boba drink, right? So like a tea or coffee or something, right? A string might work, an int might work, but it might be hard for us to pull the values out of the string to describe the drink. Where a number might name a drink like in our library or our menu, but just looking at the number might be hard to tell what it was, right? Using a class or a struct, we can make a very detailed object that represents a particular thing, right? So a struct in Swift looks like this. So we say struct, we give it a name. Usually by convention, the name begins with an uppercase letter, okay? And then we follow it with the curly braces, and the curly braces represent a code block, right? And we put all the code for the struct inside the code block. So you can see here that the code here just defines two variables. So you can think of a struct in a lot of ways as being a group of variables. So we've created the struct, and the struct is kind of the container for these variables, or sometimes we call them properties also when the variable belongs to an object, right? The struct itself is really a definition for creating objects that are collections, right, that hold these values. So collection is just an object that has multiple properties inside it, right? Like an int or a string is not a collection because it just has one property or one value, right? Here I can store two values, and I could add more if I wanted. And we use the struct here to define the variables, and when you create an instance of the struct, every instance will have these properties, and they can have different values for the two properties. Okay. So your goal right now is to create a brand new playground and create a new struct called coffee. You can also copy this previous struct here, and we can use this for some examples. And you can use this as a model to follow. So I'll copy that. You can stop the video now and try it on your own, and then I'll go over the solution in a moment. Okay, how did your solution come out? Let's give it a try. So I'm going to go to Xcode, open up a new playground, and I'll choose new file, new playground, right? And then I'll choose blank playground, and I'll save it into the folder here. I'm going to replace that other one. And then what I think I'll do is I'll just paste the boba tea drink in here, and then I'll start with struct coffee, uppercase C, right? Because we're making a struct, so convention says we start with an uppercase letter. Very regular variables and function names will have a lowercase letter. And then I'll say let's take a look at what we need here. So we need the following properties. We need a bean type, which is going to be a string. We need a sugar amount, right? And then we need a has milk property. So the sugar is going to be an integer, and the has milk will be a Boolean and true if we want milk in the drink and false if we don't. So let's try that. So let's say bean, and we'll make this a string. I'm going to make it a let. You can make it a var also, right? So if you want to be able to edit these properties in the future for any instance, then you can make this a var, right? I'm going to use a let. And wait, sugar is going to be an int, and has milk is a bool. There you go. How was your solution? Was it similar? Great. Okay, next. Let's talk about creating an instance of a struct. So the struct itself, you notice there was no values there, right? But if we want to create an instance of the struct, we'll create a container that has the two properties defined in our, or three properties defined in our struct, and we'll have values assigned to those properties. So here we're making an instance of the boba tea drink, or boba tea struct, and we're assigning it the tea property a value of black and the sweetness of a value of 25. Okay, let's give that a try. So your goal is to create an instance of the boba drink and an instance of the coffee, okay? Coffee struct. Okay, you can imagine that maybe we're making an app that works with a cafe or Starbucks or something, and people can order drinks, and these structures are used by the system to define the order. So maybe these get passed or created when someone enters the app and buys a drink, and then this object gets passed along to another system that displays the drink that someone should create to fulfill the order, right? So let's make an instance of boba. So I'll say, how about let b equal b for boba. Actually, that's not very Apple, right? Apple, they like to spell names out. So I'm gonna call this boba equals boba tea uppercase, right? Yeah, there we go, boba tea. Use the code hints as much as you can, right? So you saw like when I started typing the name boba tea, it gives me the name here. So I can just hit return now and it'll spell the rest for me. And when I type the parentheses, you'll see that it code hints me the properties, right? Or the named values here. So I can just hit return again and it'll fill those in for me. So use that as much as you can with the code editor, right? The interface for Xcode wants to do the work for you, let it. So let's say T-type here is going to maybe be jasmine, and the sweetness will be 50%. Let's make an instance of coffee. So I'll say let coffee. Now, in this case, you'll see I'm making a variable called coffee with a lowercase c. This is a different variable from this one. So the case matters, right? So these are two different names. And if you think that maybe, that might be a problem, for you to organize, use a different name. So let's say, how about Andy coffee, right? There we go, right? So that's an order for Andy. And then we can say, oops, wait, I'm going to say boba, but I'm going to say coffee this time, uppercase C. Type the parentheses, and then use the code hints to generate this. So I can hit return and it fills those in for me, right? Great. So the bean will be, I don't know anything about coffee, Robusta. I think that's a coffee bean type. I don't know. And then sugar, let's go 25%, and then has milk, false. Okay, done. So this is one order. It's an instance of this, has these properties. If I wanted to create another one, I could say, how about, oops, I made this uppercase. It should probably be lowercase. Let's do Bobby coffee, and we'll say new coffee instance. And Bobby wants, I don't know what kind of beans. Let's do black beans. I don't know. And sugar 50%, and has milk of true. Okay, so I made two instances of coffee. They both have the same general description, but they have different values, right? So these would be two different orders at the cafe, right? And the same thing with the tea. Let's do another one. So I got boba here. Let's do moba equals boba tea. Um, set the tea type to oolong and the sweetness to 25%. Okay, so these would be two different tea orders for maybe two different customers or two different I don't know what, but they're going to both be different, right? They'll both be the same, they both have a tea and a sweetness, but they have different values for those, right? So, if you wanted to print these out too, you could use the dot syntax to get the values. I think that we have that actually on a slide here. Yeah. So accessing properties. Here we made an instance of boba. If you want to print out the instance of boba, you can do that, right? Let's try it here. So I use the same variable name, so that'll work. Boba tea, boba sweetness. My values are going to be different, right? Because I got jasmine and 50% here. But we can give it a try. Let's click the button there and see what happens. Open up the console. Oh, jasmine 50, right? Okay. And then you could print out coffee. Why don't you try that? Try printing out some of the values from these other instances that you create. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll move on and talk more about structs and classes and enums in the next video.